So you're trying to figure out whether or not moving to Florida is a right thing to consider. There are 10 things that I'm going to go over in this video that you absolutely must know about before you make a decision to come down here. My name is Andre. I'm with the Adams Group Experience, and I help people like you every single day relocate to Florida. And I talk to them about whether or not it is a good decision for them based on the kind of life that they want to live. So if that's something that you're interested in, my contact information is in the description below. Give me a call. Now, let's get into those 10 things. So number one is heat and humidity. So you think that you can handle the Florida heat? Well, let's find out. Let's talk a little bit about how hot it gets in this area. So Florida is a subtropical climate, except for the Miami area, which is more of a tropical climate, which means it is hot. And especially during the summer, we get a lot of heat and humidity at the same time. So we treat our summer months the way Northerners treat their winter months. So while everybody's down here vacationing in June, July, and August, if you live in Florida, more than likely, you are just getting out of your car and going and doing what you have to do into the AC and coming back. You may be going to a pool, you may be going to a beach, but outdoor activities are not happening during the summer. So heat and humidity is absolutely something that you must deal with when you live in Florida. Otherwise, it's going to be a very, very rough experience. So number two on our list, torrential rain. If you have been here at any time during our rainy season, you will realize that it rains almost every single day. And not only does it rain, it comes down hard. So hard, in fact, that you can barely see the road when you're driving, which makes some people who are not from this area extremely uncomfortable. And you could tell the difference between someone who's used to driving in this kind of weather and someone who isn't. Now, you have to get used to the fact that every single day there's going to be some sort of tropical type weather system that comes in with a severe thunderstorm, lightning, all of that kind of stuff that comes in. And that usually happens during our summer months. So rainy season is something that you do have to know about, because when you come down here and you're wondering, well, why is it raining every single day? That is our rainy season. Now, for the rest of the year, it is actually glorious. So when you start getting into late September, early October, all the way through about May, it is typically not humid and dry, which makes it beautiful to be outside and enjoy all the different things that Florida has to offer. So number three on our list is wildlife. So some people get really surprised when they see their first alligator and the nonchalant attitude that most Floridians have toward them. Why? Because we're used to them. If you are anywhere near a body of water, it is a high probability that there's some sort of alligator living in that water. And as long as you don't feed them, they are perfectly fine and they are not a nuisance. Obviously, you don't want to have your small pets around them because that's just common sense. But the thing that you want to make sure is that you're not feeding them or you're not giving them a reason to be any different than they are. Now, Florida has a very, very diverse wildlife system. So if you are in a more modern area, like a Tampa area where you're just in lakes and bodies of water, you're going to run into alligators and small snakes and things like that. But if you get into more of a rural area, you're going to see all different types of wildlife. You'll see signs saying bear crossing, deer crossing, all sorts of different things are going to come out. Actually, my wife hit a deer because it jumped out in front of her car while she was driving up in Spring Hill. So it is definitely a possibility that you're going to encounter wildlife driving down the street that you would not have normally encountered where you're coming from. And if you live on a property that's by water, or you choose to live on a property that's by water, you cannot be surprised if alligators come with that territory. So number four on our list is lack of seasons. We do not have a ton of weather-related changes. You'll notice that a lot of the list so far has been weather-related, and that's because that is the number one thing that people either are moving to Florida for or are surprised about when they get here. I'll give you an example. Most of us are used to in the north of Halloween being kind of chilly or cold. It is hot in October in Florida, so you are going to be trick-or-treating in the heat. It is really hot. So the kind of costumes that you wear sometimes are so hot that you gotta take off the hat or do all the things because it is too hot to be in that. The other thing that people get surprised is wintertime, or what we call winter, is really the high of 70 and a low of 50. We might get an occasional freeze of 2 to 3 days every year that is like in the 30s, but for the most part, our weather is very, very mild. So when you're doing Christmas here for the first time when you move to Florida and it's still sunny and warm and you can sit outside, that throws people off. And sometimes they do miss the fact that it's not cold or maybe that we won't get any snow. So you have to be okay with the idea that your seasons aren't going to be changing the way they were where you came from up north or in other parts of the United States. So we do not have 4 typical seasons, even though we call them summer, spring, fall, and winter. We don't have them. All right, so number 5 on our list is tourism and crowds. Now look, Florida's economy is built on tourism. So if you're coming down to Florida, you have to understand that a lot of people like to vacation in our state. We have some of the best beaches in the world. We have some of the best attractions in the world when it comes to Disneyland, Universal. We have Miami. We have a lot of places that people want to come to. And now Tampa blowing up and being one of the more popular areas in the country, we have a lot of guests that come into our world. And so because of that, our traffic can sometimes be ridiculous. So if you're driving in those areas, you have to be comfortable with the fact that there's going to be an increased traffic. So not only do you have the people that work here and who are doing their daily life activities, going to school, going to work, you also have the people who are visiting and they are not knowing where the heck they're going. So they're looking around, looking at their GPS, driving, and we have a lot of mergers and exchanges going in the Tampa area that can make it a little bit challenging if you're not familiar with what's going on around here. So the second factor is we have a lot of snowbirds. So there are people who live here only part of the year, and they come down when their cold season is in effect up north, and they come down and they live here. So you'll see an increased presence in restaurants and other related things that you would normally do that are pretty typically available during the summer start to get fuller as it goes into what we would consider the fall and winter, even though that's not really what you would consider if you're from the north. But that happens and things you notice start to get a little bit busier, and that's because people are coming down here. So we are a very, very popular destination for tourists and people who have second homes. So number 6 on our list is hurricanes. So hurricanes are just part of life in Florida. No matter where you are in this state, you are at risk of getting hit by a hurricane. Now, as a resident of this state for more than 12 years, I can tell you that in hearing some of the stories about Midwestern states when it comes to tornadoes and the sudden impact of those, I will take a hurricane that I can see from a few days away and be able to prepare and move my family in a moment than a tornado. But that doesn't mean it's any less scary. But what it does do is it causes us to have increased premiums when it comes to our homeowners insurance and some other insurances that we need because the risk of hurricanes is always knocking at our doorstep. Okay, let's go on to number 7. Number 7 is something that I think people do know about, but you don't really understand the impact of it until you're down here. Florida has no state income tax. So if you're like me, who transplanted from New York, where a state that had not only a state tax, but also a city tax, when I moved to Florida, did not have to pay any of those taxes anymore. But that also meant I had to sacrifice a little bit more on the income because Florida incomes are not on the same level as it was in New York. But it does make a difference when you come down here and you're no longer paying those state taxes. So that does help offset some of the different expenses that you're going to see an increase of, which would be on your homeowner's insurance and your car insurance. So don't sleep on the fact that Florida does not have a state income tax because you can save a lot of money coming down here. And that's why retirees really, really like it down here. All right, number 8 on our list. Most people don't realize this, but Florida, specifically Tampa and some other parts north of Tampa, are notoriously known for sinkholes. Now, I'm going to make some clarifications here. All of Florida is prone to sinkholes because we are built on sand and limestone. We are not like a state like New York that is built on a rock kind of like island that you could tunnel trains and run cities on top of. That is not Florida. And we don't have basements here either. So people looking for basements, like, why doesn't Florida have basements? It's because we're on sand. All right, so we don't have those types of things. So we are definitely more prone to sinkholes. Now, another thing to consider is that there was a lot of fraudulent activity going on in the 80s and 90s when it came to sinkhole repairs that weren't exactly sinkhole. They were just normal settlement, and their fraud just was rampant throughout the area. So you're going to see, if you come down and try to buy a home here, a lot of sinkhole remediated homes. Now, I am not here to tell you whether or not you should or should not buy a sinkhole remediated home. You should look at every single home on the merits of what that home has to offer. But just know that you're like, if you start looking at homes down here and you see a tremendous amount of sinkhole remediation, sinkhole repaired, you're like, well, why? Why is there so many sinkhole repaired homes? Well, that's it. That's the reason why. All right, number 9 on our list, bugs. Bugs and more disgusting bugs. Florida is full of bugs and they're always around. All right, I have a pest control company that I have come, and I could not live without them, and they help keep a lot of the pests out of my house because I put like this border protection on my home to make sure that they're not coming to the inside, and they still get in. So you are going to see a tremendous amount of mosquitoes sucking the blood out of you daily. There's mosquitoes everywhere. The other thing that you're going to experience a lot of is spiders. Spiders are just natural part of the ecosystem here. Okay, you're going to see weird looking bugs like palmetto bugs. You ever want to see a flying cockroach coming at your face? That is a palmetto bug. It is disgusting and large and freaky. All right, so you do not want to see those up close and personal, but they're like gigantic flying cockroaches. We have grasshoppers and other things that you see. So there are bugs that you didn't even know existed in the world because Florida is such a warm and diverse climate that we're going to have a tremendous amount of bugs. All right, so number 10 on my list is my favorite. Florida drivers. If you want to really not understand why people drive a certain way, come to Florida, where we have more uninsured motorists than any other place in the country, where our auto insurance rates are 35 to 40% higher than everywhere else in the country. Why? Because Florida drivers are terrible. And I don't know why they're terrible. I just know that if you compare it to a New York driver, I used to drive on the Long Island Expressway, and I used to describe it as people were aggressive, but with purpose. Like there was a reason why things were happening the way they were. Now, I have been driving here for 12 years and I don't understand some of the reasons why Florida drivers do what they do. In Florida, turn signals seem to be optional. People do not use them. There's no such thing as a stop sign. You just kind of slow down and look around and make sure nobody else is coming. Also, people are riding your tailgate for no particular reason because the minute you move over, they don't pass. They just want to be up close and personal for no good reason. So I can't for the life of me understand why Florida drivers drive the way they do, but it is what it is. And you do have to kind of get used to that when you come down here because there is a lot of people out here who create accidents in order to benefit from the claim. So you have to be a careful driver out here. Now, I have not personally ever experienced that, but I do know it exists and I have heard stories about it. So as long as you're a careful driver and you're aware and you're competent and you know what's going on in the road and you follow the rules of the road and you generally speaking are, for lack of a courteous driver, all things are well. But every now and then you're wondering, why on earth is this person doing that? And what is wrong with you? Okay. And I could describe certain cars that meet this characteristic, but that's for another video. If you want to tell me what you think it is, you can put that in the comments. But there are certain type of cars that I'm, well, yep, that's going to be a crappy drive. So as we wrap up this video, I love Florida, so I don't want anything to be misunderstood. I've been living here for 12 years. I moved from New York. I would not change it any other way, but you do need to know what you're getting yourself into. If you're going to relocate yourself and your entire family to a new state thinking that it's one thing, but it's really not. And a lot of that happens because people will spend 1 or 2 weeks in this state, fall in love with whatever it is that we're doing and think that that's going to be their life every single day. And that is simply not true. When you're here on vacation, you are on a vacation. Those things are just different. It's a different experience. It's a different lifestyle. It is a different way of doing things. And you're not experiencing it on a day-to-day level as you would if you lived here. So make sure you understand everything that you want to accomplish when you move to another state. I'm here to help in any way I can. My contact information is in the description. So before you move to Florida, give me a call. Let's talk through it and let's figure out if moving to the state is the right thing for you to do. So until then, I'll see you guys in the next video. Hope you're having a blessed day.